July 1989. I'm going to have some anecdotes here, and then I'm going to talk about some books. If you don't want to hear the anecdotes, skip ahead. I can't tell you when. I don't know when I'm going to start talking about books. I just have some things I want to get off my chest first. So, anybody who's watched this series from the beginning or gone back and watched the old ones knows that in May of 1986, I joined the Air Force and ended up getting stationed in California for almost 3 years. And for the last few videos in this series, I've been teasing the fact that I ended my assignment in California. I was going somewhere else. In the last video, I talked about leaving California, driving across the country, and now I'm ready to reveal where I went for my last year in the United States Air Force. So drove from California to Ohio, spent some time hanging out with friends and family, and then took a little family trip to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where I boarded a plane from Hawaiian Airlines that took me to Iceland. Yes, I went to Iceland for my last year. Not my first choice, but might as well travel on Uncle Sam's dime. And it wasn't too bad. So in Iceland, the main base was Keflavik. If I remember any of this correctly, it was a Navy base that housed Marines, and it had Air Force security. So, excuse me just a moment. I have a tickle in my throat. This is the third time I've recorded this video because I keep coughing. And I'm just gonna go through. You're gonna see me drink. You're gonna see me cough because I'm not gonna keep stopping and re-recording. If I could get rid of that tickle, it would be much nicer. All right, so Keflavik, Navy base, Marine units, Air Force security. I believe. Well, you had, excuse me, Air Force on the gates. And then they did flight line, if I'm not mistaken, which is walking around airplanes and stuff. And the reason I say, if I'm not mistaken, is because I was not at Keflavik, about 10 miles away. I feel like it was 10 miles. It's been a long-ass time, so I don't remember exactly how far away. It's a little tiny place called Rockville, which is a radar site. That's where I got stationed. So my first week or so, while I did all the introductory stuff, I was on the main base at Keflavik. Then I got shipped out to Rockville. We stayed there. We had barracks and everything. And there were only basically two jobs. You had the front gate, and you had the, security of the radar facility itself. Not bad. And as I go through more, I'm not going to tell you everything there is to tell you about Iceland. In this video, I'll just talk, as I go through the months that I was there, I'll pepper in some little things. I will say at this point, let's see, when I left the United States, it was about 90 degrees, a lot of humidity. Got to Iceland, and it was probably in the 50s, and I was freezing. Wore my parka for that first week or so, but, excuse me, really got used to it. And I think the biggest thing is that in Ohio, our winters are crazy. The temperature goes up and down, up and down. You'll have days 30s and below, and then the next day it's 60, and you really can't get used to a steady temperature. And maybe humidity has something to do with it as well. I feel like in Iceland, summers got up into the 50s. It got cooler into the winter, but it was relatively a steady kind of thing, and then warmed up again in the summer. Of course, again, if I remember correctly, longest day of the year, the sun didn't really set. I feel it just sort of dipped down behind some mountains, and then shortest day of the year, I think it's only up for a few hours. I got there in July. So it was long days. The sun was up very, very late. But it wasn't difficult to get used to that. And eventually, again, I got used to the weather. And so I wasn't wearing the parka all the time. I did in the winter, of course. I'm not crazy. But by the next summer, up in the 50s, it's t-shirt and shorts and laying out in the sun. Pardon me. All right. So that's enough about Iceland for now. Let's get into the books that I read. So the first book I read in July of 1989 is The Curious Case of Sid Finch by George Plimpton. This is one that was recommended by Dennis O'Neil in the pages of the Question comic book. And it's a novel about, I think it's the New York Mets hire this mysterious pitcher, Sid Finch. Came from, I believe they found him in a monastery. He's got a 168 mile an hour fastball. And it's basically the story of this guy and him becoming a major league pitcher. And it initially started back in, I'm looking, an April 1985 issue of Sports Illustrated. The date is very important. They ran an article about this pitcher for the Mets who had a 168 mile an hour fastball. And, excuse me, of course, it was an April Fool's joke, but it seemed like a real article. They had, quotes from Mets players and management and all this stuff. And George Plimpton he wrote the article and then decided to turn it into this book. It was pretty interesting. Next up, we have Tumbleweed by, I'm going to slaughter this name again, Jan Willem van de Wettering. I don't know how to say it. I apologize. This is another, it's a mystery. Our two detectives, let's see, I'm looking at my notes here. There's a high-class call girl is murdered, and our two detectives, DeGear and I can't remember the other guy, have to solve this murder. I like these books. I'm probably someday, maybe, if I have the time, going to go back and read them. Book number 3, The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck, M.D. And this is I suppose, self-help. It's a book about, finding your way in life, enlightenment, whatever. It's hugely famous. It's sold millions, if not billions, of copies. One of the most famous of this style of book. And it's just, trying to teach you the best way to live your life and find fulfillment. Book number 4, Little Myth Marker by Robert Asprin. Myth, M-Y-T-H, Little Myth Marker. This is a comedy fantasy, and you've got, your main character is Skeeve. He's a human, magician, I believe, or sorcerer, warlock, whatever you want to call him. His mentor is a demon named Oz, A-A-H-Z, Oz, and they get into all sorts of shenanigans. Next, we have West of Eden by Harry Harrison, and this is about a human named Carrick who is kidnapped and raised by these lizard people, the Yalana. Checking my notes, I think that's what it is. Eventually he escapes and he tries to bring all the human tribes together to fight against the lizard people. These are, if I remember correctly, it's almost a prehistoric kind of story. These are like caveman, Neanderthal level humans, I think. Obviously didn't leave a lasting impression. There is going to be more Harry Harrison in the future, but it's a little different than this. Next up, Burglars Can't Be Choosers by Lawrence Block. This is, I believe, the first Bernie Rodenbar adventure. And Bernie is a thief. And in this book, he's hired to steal something. And I think he's framed for murder. The cops show up. There's a dead body there. He's got to prove that he didn't murder this person. There's going to be more of these. Pretty good. I'm not a huge Lawrence Block fan, but I did read a bunch in the Burglar series, the Bernie Rodenbar series. Then we have Gin and Daggers by Jessica Fletcher and Donald Barn. I can't read my own handwriting. Something like that. So, of course, Jessica Fletcher is the main character in Murder, She Wrote. This is, I think, the first original Murder, She Wrote novel. And it's Jessica goes to England, I'm going to say, for a mystery writers convention. And she's going to hook up with her mentor, who ends up being murdered. And Jessica has to solve the murder. And every book... I've read a few. My mother, I think, has read every single one. There's tons and tons of these Murder, She Wrote novels, and I believe every one was written by Jessica Fletcher and someone else. It's fine. I occasionally watched Murder, She Wrote. Back in the day, we didn't have a lot of choices. We only had a few channels. So I would watch the show occasionally, read the books occasionally. And then finally, the last book that I read in July of 1989, and I guess I was lucky that they had this in Iceland. I'll get to that in a second. Mission Earth, Volume 4, An Alien Affair by L. Ron Hubbard. So this is book 4 in the 10-book epic series about these aliens that are coming to Earth to take it over. Earth's being destroyed by pollution and stuff. So the main alien guy, and they look human. He's trying to fix the Earth before the invasion, because who wants to invade a shitty planet? But in this story, there's a guy, another alien guy, that's trying to sabotage the main guy. And of course, this is about why is he doing it and will he be successful? Pretty interesting books. Again, I've mentioned this before. I did not know about L. Ron Hubbard's Scientology at the time that I read this. So there you go. As I said, I felt lucky to find this because I'd already read the first 3. Now I'm in Iceland. But the main base, I feel like the library was on the main base. And I got a lot of books there. And, and I was lucky, again, to find this. Seemed like an odd thing, since it wasn't like an official, I guess it was a real library. You had to check stuff out. But it's not like, it was very small. Not like the type of library you're going to find in a regular city, I guess. I don't know. I'm used to the libraries around here. And that was on the main base. At Rockville, the library was basically, I'm trying to remember. Hopefully I have this correct. The library was basically just a room in a building. I don't even think it was the whole building. I think it was just one room where people would leave books. Is that right? Does it matter? I don't know. It's been a long time. I do know that in our barracks, in the day room, we had a shelf where people would just put books that they were leaving behind or they'd read and didn't care to keep. So there was a good dozens and dozens of books on this shelf, and there were a couple porn drawers. But a bunch of different books, mysteries, thrillers, sci-fi, horror, different stuff. You could just take it, read it, put it back. Some people would keep them, swap them out for other things. So there was plenty to read. And as I said, so a lot of these things are I didn't pack a bunch of books with me. I did buy some while I was there at the PX, but most of this is going to be stuff that I got from the library. the real library or the Little Rockville library or the day room. All right. But anyway, so that's it. How many books is that? 2, 4, 6, 8 books I read in July of 1989. I am in a foreign country. I'm in Iceland. And I'll have more anecdotes, more things to tell you about Iceland as we go along over the next, well, basically 12 videos. That's it. So, yeah. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put them in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronin5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comics, board games, and fuzzy animals, is, what is it? Eric Smith 5757. That's ERIKSMITH 5757. That's all I've got for you this time. So until next time, read more books.